Rain poured like the world was crying, and most people drove past him. But one man, one poor black man, stopped. He didn't know who was in that car, only that a life depended on him. Inside, an old billionaire gasped for air, clutching his chest, terrified and alone. Every second felt like eternity, and Elijah, just a man with nothing to lose, held him steady. He could have walked away, everyone else did, but he didn't. And in that storm, something happened that would change not just one life, but both of their destinies forever. By the time the rain stopped, a simple act of kindness became a chain of events that shocked the world. You won't believe what happened next. Welcome to Brainfuel, your daily dose of shocking, emotional, and life-changing stories. Here, we bring you real tales of courage, hope, and humanity that will leave you inspired. Sit back, hit that like button, and get ready to feel every emotion as we dive into today's story. The scream of brakes cut through the rain-soaked street. Lightning flashed, revealing an old black luxury car stalled on the side of the road. Steam curled from under the hood like smoke from a dying fire. The rain poured in sheets, drenching the deserted street, and most drivers didn't even glance at the struggling man inside the car. Some swerved past, muttering under their breaths, avoiding the inconvenience. But one man did stop. His name was Elijah. His clothes were thin, soaked through, clinging to his body, and his shoes had long since lost any protection against the rain. He was small, quiet, and often overlooked by the world, but he had a heart that refused to ignore human suffering. Something about this moment, something about the desperation in the car made him walk toward it without hesitation. He approached slowly, hands slightly trembling. The window was fogged up, streaked with rain, but through it he could see the man inside. He was old, white-haired, and pale, gripping the steering wheel as if it were a lifeline. Blood, or maybe sweat, glimmered on his forehead. His breaths came fast and shallow. His eyes, wide with fear, locked onto Elijah as if pleading silently. Elijah rapped on the window. "Sir, do you need help?" he shouted, voice barely audible over the rain. The old man's eyes filled with tears. "Please, help me. I can't move." His hand shook on the wheel, and his face twisted in pain. Elijah didn't hesitate. He opened the door and steadied him, feeling the old man's body shake in the rain. "It's okay. I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you," he said softly yet firmly. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. The rain pelted both men mercilessly. Cars rushed past, their lights blurring through the storm. Horns blared. But Elijah didn't move. He stood firm, holding the old man upright. Elijah knew the street was dangerous, slippery with rain and mud, but he blocked the man from falling, gripping his arms tightly. The old man groaned in pain, and Elijah could see the fear etched into every line of his face. "I don't want to die here, not like this," the man whispered, almost inaudible, voice trembling with terror. "You won't," Elijah said, steadying him. "I won't let you." He looked around frantically, scanning for help. His eyes caught the headlights of an approaching truck. With a wave of his arms, he shouted as loud as he could, but the rain drowned his voice. Finally, the truck slowed. Elijah ran into the road, soaked and mud-stained, heart hammering. The truck stopped. Its driver jumped out, shielding his face from the rain. "Is he hurt badly?" the driver asked, alarmed. "Yes, we need to get him to a hospital now," Elijah shouted, guiding the old man toward the vehicle. They lifted him into the back seat. Elijah got in with him, holding his hand, whispering words of comfort. The old man's lips quivered. "Thank you. I don't know why you stopped," he said, tears mixing with the rainwater running down his cheeks. "You didn't need to explain. No one should ever be left like this," Elijah replied, sincerely. As the truck sped through the rain-soaked streets, Elijah noticed something about the man's hands. They were thin, pale, and trembling, not from age alone, but from fear, isolation, and maybe regret.
Elijah wanted to say something encouraging, but words felt inadequate. All he could do was hold the man's hand and promise silently that he wouldn't leave him. Hours later, when the rain had slowed to a drizzle, he stepped outside. The street was empty. The man he had helped was safe inside, but Elijah's mind was still there, watching every detail of the night. The rain, the fear, the silence, the urgency. That night would stay with him forever. He walked back home, wet and weary, thinking about how life sometimes places you in moments that define everything. He didn't know that the man he had saved was not just anyone, but a billionaire feared and admired by the world. To Elijah, he was simply a human in need of help, and that was enough. And as the first light of dawn broke through the storm clouds, Elijah paused on a bridge, watching the water flow below. He whispered to himself, "It's not money or power that changes the world. It's the heart that refuses to look away." When Henry Whitmore woke up in the hospital, the first thing he remembered wasn't the sharp pain in his chest or the sound of machines beeping. It was the face of the man who had held him up in the rain, steadying him when the world seemed ready to turn away. Panic and confusion ran through him, and he immediately demanded to see the person who had saved his life. "Where is the man who helped me?" he asked the nurse, voice urgent, almost desperate. His hand trembled as he gripped the bed rails, eyes wide. "I need to thank him." They tracked Elijah down to a small, worn-down apartment on the edge of the city. The building's walls were cracked, and the lights flickered from the storm that had passed hours earlier. Elijah opened the door slowly, surprised to see a team of hospital staff and a man in a sharp suit waiting. "Sir, this is Elijah," a nurse said softly. Elijah stepped forward cautiously, mud still caked on his shoes and water dripping from his hair. I didn't do anything special," he said quietly, hands stuffed into the pockets of his worn jacket. Henry stepped forward, white-haired and frail, but his eyes burned with intensity. "You saved my life," he said, voice shaking with emotion. I cannot thank you enough." Elijah looked down, embarrassed. "I just did what anyone should do," he said, his voice quiet, almost lost beneath the hum of the city outside. Henry shook his head. "No," he said firmly, stepping closer. "Most people wouldn't even slow down. You did, and because of you, I'm alive today." For hours, Henry insisted that Elijah stay in the hospital while he recovered. Elijah initially resisted, saying he had to get back to work, that he had responsibilities. As Elijah sat beside the hospital bed, wet clothes replaced by a hospital blanket, he began to open up. He shared fragments of his life, the endless struggle to survive, the small jobs that barely paid for meals, the nights he spent alone in his tiny apartment. "I've been stepped over my whole life," Elijah admitted quietly, voice trembling. "People, they see me, and then they don't. They assume I'm nothing." Henry listened, his own eyes watering. He had money, power, and influence, yet he had never experienced the kind of invisible pain Elijah carried. In boardrooms filled with applause and flattery, Henry had always felt a gnawing emptiness, a void that no wealth could fill. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," Elijah said, biting his lip. "You don't even know me." "You're the only one who's been honest with me today," Henry replied softly. "The only one who didn't see me as money, as a name, as an image." Days turned to weeks. Henry slowly regained his strength, but something had shifted. His heart had changed, touched by a kindness that could not be measured in dollars or influence. Every luxurious comfort in his life suddenly felt empty compared to the warmth of that rainy night when a poor man had saved him with nothing but his courage. Henry sent gifts and offers of money to Elijah, cars, a small apartment, even cash, but each time Elijah refused. "I didn't help you for that," he said simply. "I helped you because it was right. That's all." Henry felt a sting of frustration mixed with admiration. He was used to people accepting whatever he offered, bowing to wealth and influence. But Elijah was different. He had integrity, honesty, and a heart too strong to be swayed by money. Night after night, Henry reflected on that moment in the rain, the fear, the helplessness, the cold, and the touch of someone who refused to leave him behind. For the first time, he realized that power without compassion was meaningless. The world could praise him, fear him, or envy him, but none of it mattered if no one truly saw him. Henry decided he had to do something, not just for himself, but to honor the man who had saved his life. He called his lawyer and began to make plans. "Add Elijah to the will," he instructed. "Sir, he's not family. He's not even a business partner. Are you sure?" "Yes," Henry said firmly. "He's the only one who treated me like family. He's the only one who truly cared." The lawyer made notes, trying to hide his surprise. "This is unusual, sir." Henry looked out of the window, thinking of that stormy night. Unusual? Maybe. But the world doesn't need more usual. It needs truth. It needs kindness. It needs people who refuse to look away. Meanwhile, Elijah continued his life as before, quiet, unassuming, surviving from one day to the next. He had no idea that his simple act of courage had begun to change the course of a man's life, a billionaire whose every decision could ripple across the world. Yet something had shifted in Elijah, too. There was a quiet satisfaction, a soft glow in his heart that he had never felt before. He had been invisible to most of the world, yet in that storm, in that moment, he had mattered. And for the first time he understood that the value of a human being was not in wealth, status, or recognition, but in courage, compassion, and the willingness to act when no one else would. Henry, too, began to make small changes in his life. He started meeting with people from the streets, learning their struggles, listening to their stories. He realized that no amount of money could replace the value of human connection. He saw Elijah's face in every act of kindness he initiated, a reminder that one small action could echo far beyond imagination. Weeks turned to months. Henry's health improved, and he grew more thoughtful, more grounded. Yet the decision to include Elijah in his will remained a secret, kept quietly, a testament to the gratitude and respect that words alone could never express. Elijah never knew how much his life-saving act had shaken Henry's world. All he knew was that the old man was alive, that the world hadn't turned away, and that he had done the right thing. And in that quiet, unseen connection between a billionaire and a poor man, a lesson was forming, a lesson about the power of kindness, the importance of empathy, and the profound effect a single act of courage could have on two lives forever intertwined. The day of Henry Whitmore's will reading arrived like a storm that no one could ignore. The grand hall was silent but for the soft shuffle of papers and nervous whispers. Henry's family, influential, sharp-tongued, and accustomed to control, sat in velvet chairs, eyes flicking with curiosity and thinly veiled greed. No one expected what was about to happen. Elijah stood at the back of the room, soaked from rain months earlier, but now clean, though his clothes were simple, worn, unassuming. He had no expectations. He had come because he was asked, but he didn't know what to expect. In fact, he almost didn't come at all, thinking this was beyond him. The lawyer cleared his throat, looking at the room full of shocked and anxious faces. "We are here today to honor the last wishes of Henry Whitmore," he began, voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of anticipation. He began reading the will. Houses, cars, stocks, and businesses were distributed as expected. Relatives nodded, whispered, and even smiled, assuming the familiar distribution of wealth would proceed smoothly. But then the lawyer paused, eyes flicking toward Elijah. "And lastly," the lawyer said, "Henry Whitmore has left a substantial portion of his estate and his charitable foundation to Elijah Thompson." The room froze. Shock hung in the air like a heavy fog. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Faces twisted in disbelief. Some mouths opened, then closed, eyes wide, hands shaking. Elijah felt his heart skip a beat. He had expected nothing, imagined perhaps a thank you note or a small token, but this was beyond everything he had ever dreamed. One of Henry's relatives, a sharp-featured man in an expensive suit, stood abruptly. "What? This can't be! Who is this man?" he shouted. His voice echoed through the hall, sharp as a whip. "He saved Henry's life," the lawyer said calmly. "He was the only person who stopped when everyone else drove past. Henry saw something in him that mattered more than money, more than family, more than status." Elijah's hands shook as he stepped forward, trying to stay composed. He had never imagined being in a room like this, never imagined being the center of attention. Every eye in the room now rested on him, some curious, some angry, some incredulous. "Why me?" Elijah whispered, almost to himself. Henry's recorded message began to play, a final voice from beyond. "I had everything," he said, calm and clear. "But the night I almost died, it wasn't my wealth that saved me. It was a poor man's courage, a man who refused to look away, a man who saw me not as a billionaire, but as a human being." Tears welled up in Elijah's eyes. The raw emotion of those words, the truth in Henry's voice shook him to the core. He could feel the weight of the moment, the gravity of what had just been entrusted to him. The lawyer continued, "Henry Whitmore has established the Whitmore Helping Hands Foundation, entrusted to Elijah Thompson to provide aid to those in need, to help people abandoned by circumstance, just as he once was abandoned by the world." Gasps filled the room. Some people turned red with anger. Others stared blankly, unable to comprehend what they were hearing. Elijah felt his tears streaming down his face. He stepped forward again, voice shaking. I don't deserve this," he whispered. The lawyer smiled gently. "You do, because you saved a life, and in doing so, you showed the world what truly matters." Relatives murmured, some angry, some in disbelief. "This is ridiculous," one shouted. "He's not even family. This is unfair." But the words bounced off Elijah. He wasn't here for the approval of others. He was here because he had been chosen by a man who had seen his courage, his heart, and his soul. The room fell into a hush as Henry's recorded voice continued. "Elijah did not save me for money, nor did he seek fame. He saved me because it was the right thing to do, and for that I have my deepest gratitude, my trust, and my legacy." Elijah's shoulders shook and a tear rolled down his cheek. I will do my best," he said softly. "I will honor him. I promise." Over the next few weeks, Elijah learned more about the foundation. It was a massive responsibility involving donations, programs, and initiatives to help people stranded by life's harsh circumstances. At first, he felt overwhelmed, but each time he thought of that night in the rain, of Henry's trembling hand, and the desperate look in his eyes, he felt his resolve grow stronger. Elijah started small, visiting shelters, helping families, rescuing people in emergencies, and lending a hand wherever he could. Every life he touched reminded him of that rainy night, and every grateful smile reaffirmed the value of his courage and compassion. Months later, Elijah returned to the street where he had first stopped Henry. The same rain had once poured, the same dark clouds had once swallowed the city in gloom, yet now the street felt different, full of life, full of possibility. He watched volunteers helping stranded families, guiding children, carrying groceries, and offering blankets. A small plaque had been installed nearby. Whitmore Helping Hands, where courage meets compassion. Elijah paused, touching the edges lightly, remembering the night that had changed everything. He smiled softly, feeling the weight of gratitude and responsibility balanced perfectly. That night in the rain had taught him the most valuable lesson. Kindness is not measured by money or fame. Courage is not measured by strength or status. What truly matters is seeing someone's need and acting even when no one else will. Years later, Elijah often told this story not to boast, but to remind people that the smallest actions, the moments when we refuse to ignore someone's pain, can echo through lives in ways we could never imagine. He had gone from a poor man who stopped in the rain to a leader of compassion, proving that real power lies in the heart, not in the bank. And that is how one rainy night, one act of selfless courage, and one human choice transformed 2 lives forever and left a legacy that would touch countless more.